And welcome back, YouTube. It has been a while, but we are here for the release of Ines Raya. Most anticipated so far, I think. Ines Raya's base kit is going to start with the plasma oscillation. This is her passive. This is a lot of words, but we'll get through it. The skill critical hit rate increase is your maximum MP times 6.5%. This is returned to you in the form of a ratio. Right now we have 347 MP, and with no modules, I have a 37.55% skill critical hit rate. 6.5% of 347 will give us 22.5%. 22.5% plus the 15% base that she ends up with will give you the critical hit rate of 37. As you increase levels, you will gain more MP, and at level 40, you get 300 just from her base. Then you can get a 150 increase from the sensor set. All sensors come with this MP increase, so you can walk away with 458 base MP. 458 base MP will give you a 45% critical hit rate increase. There are 3 critical hit rate modules that increase your critical hit rate, and they are emergency measures, front lines, and skill insight. You have the option of either putting skill insight on with front lines and emergency measures, or putting on a skill critical hit rate increase on your reactor. I choose the reactor because you can get more damage out of modules than you can out of a reactor bonus. And with that reactor, we get a 48% increase. 48 minus 37 is 11%. So this 28% is actually going off the 37% increase that we have just with our MP. That is just the lowdown on the critical hit rate increase on the plasma oscillation. Up next is the skill critical hit on enemies with Conductor. Conductor is a status that Ines Raya afflicts. It is the red bar, and then whenever Conductor goes away, it reprocs itself by exploding. If you critically hit an enemy with a skill that is attacking an enemy where the enemy is already conducted, you get a 5% chance to heal your MP rate by 5%. While this doesn't sound like a lot, Ines Raya procs a lot of ticks. So this is how you will regen a lot of MP. You don't really need MP recovery on a module. I still recommend MP recovery for the external components. You can also trigger Dark Current. Dark Current will have a 100% trigger rate on skills and a 10% trigger rate on critical hits with firearms. You can see at the top, the Dark Current is the black square with the rotating angle. And every time you trigger Dark Current, it explodes.
Keep trying.
You'll see the explosion and then the black cube trigger, and it has a cooldown on it. That is the damage from Dark Current. I think the damage from Dark Current is in itself rather low, so don't really build a too Dark Current. Just think of it as an extra tick that she inflicts. The Dark Current math is relatively complicated. Just know that you will maximize your damage output by having more MP. Now, whenever she says more MP, you do not actually need an increased MP module to gain the maximum benefits out of Ines. However, if you put a module like MP Conversion, where it subtracts MP for the cost of cooldown, you will see a decrease in damage, critical hit rate, and utility on Ines Raya. The next thing is the plasma charge amount. You will gain 2.5% plasma whenever you inflict Conductor. It says this, but you only get it per enemy. I don't know if this is a glitch or if this is intended.
This is going to hurt.
But you will notice I inflict Conductor with every tick, and even when the Conductor resets itself and you get another proc of Conductor, you do not get any more plasma. Yes, you do. Whenever the conductor resets itself, you do then get some more plasma. However, I have had very mixed results whenever I'm fighting a boss and I just don't get plasma. I don't know if that's a me thing or a game thing. Chain Lightning is the next ability. So whenever you cast Chain Lightning will chain down all of the enemies that it could chain down on. Its skill effect range multiplied by 0.4 is how much extra you will get. Now this sounds confusing because it is, but you get 7 times the bounce, and then for every 100% increase in range that you put on Ines Raya, you'll get 2 more bounces. So you'll notice
This is going to sting a little.
there are 2 enemies out of 9 that are not conducted. If we put on a range module,
There's no getting away.
it affects all 9 enemies. That is all the skill effect range divided by 0.4 is what it shows here. And then, of course, they are all conducted. There is additional damage done to enemies that are already conducted equal to your skill power times 51%. The next ability, Lightning Conductor, not to get it confused with the Conductor status effect that she inflicts, has a damage range of 15 meters, so everything within 15 meters will be subject to a skill power damage of 424% of your skill power, and you can take it all the way up to 30 meters. This is very good for ad clearing, and you'll see not only the proc effect, but all of the explosions are in fact the dark current explosions from the plasma oscillation. And then we have Discharge. Discharge has a massive range and a slight quirk to the ability. You can charge Discharge and then release it after it's fully charged. You'll see her hand pulse, and this is when it's fully charged. Right there.
Get out of my way.
And then you shock everything in front of you, or a nice skill power modifier of 3,600%. Now that is doubled whenever you charge it up to the max, but you're still sitting there gathering resources, charging it up to the max to just do less than 2 sniper bullets from Haley. However, I do think the range is worth building into, because once you build into the range, you can hit every enemy in a very large cylinder in front of you. You can see that the maximum range is 38 meters long and then 12 meters wide. Her fourth ability, Snare Hunter. You get 2 snare traps, and whenever it gets placed, you get a 50% speed boost. The 50% speed boost will last 10 seconds, or however long you build into duration with Ines, and it ticks every 0.5 seconds. So you'll get 20 procs off of the Thunder Snare every time you place it, as long as you don't build into duration. And then there is a continuous damage range, and then another effect called Current Coils. So if I go out, each one of these is 5, 5, 10, and then 14. You'll see that the continuous damage range is 14.4 meters. And then on the current coils, the damage range is 28.8 meters. So I will use this as a good example. 5, 10, 14, somewhere over here.
Let's end this.
So you will see him hit by the snare, and then the second ring is the current coil. The current coil does about the same amount of damage. However, you don't get the same interval of 0.5. Now you get 2.4. You'll notice every 2.4 seconds, it procs. As opposed to zap, 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 zap. This is pretty useful to build into. I do recommend some cooldown on Ines. You don't have to go all the way into MP conversion, because if you do go into MP conversion, you have to compensate with an enlightenment module or another MP increase. Currently, there are 2 transcendent modules for Ines. One of them is called Plasma Ball. This lets her turn into basically one of the tankiest characters in the game. The way that Plasma Ball works, it works as a health gate. So you acquire a Plasma Ball, which is like a shield, and the shield is equal to your HP times your ratioed max MP times 6.1%. Now, what that means is if I have 1,000 maximum MP, I will get a 60 ratio, which means my Plasma Ball will have 0.6 times my HP and using all of my defenses and attributes. Now, this 0.6 doesn't sound like a lot. However, the cooldown is 65, and if you put enough cooldown on Ines, which the maximum is 81%, around 81%, with the right build, all the 2 focus on modules, the MP conversion, and the Nimble Fingers module, that will give you a 12-second window where every 12 seconds you get 60% of your HP as a health gate. This is really strong, although you can't get your MP to 1,000. Really, realistically, you'll get it around 700. But that still gives you about 45% of your health bar every 12 seconds as a health gate, which turns Ines Raya into one of the best tanks in the game. And then you still get the MP heal trigger rates and all of the dark current multipliers that you got before. The Plasma Ball will look like 3 floating spheres with a cooldown timer on the left. And then we have Time of the Hunting Hounds. Time of the Hunting Hounds swaps the first ability and the third ability with 2 secondary abilities and turns them both into tech. This is going to be regarded as the best module for Ines right now, mostly because it adds so much synergy to Ines. It's similar to the Absolute Zero module on VS. So this basically turns her into a tech descendant, and since this is going to be the strongest module, it's just going to be more beneficial to have a tech reactor for Ines. The first ability, Floating Lightning. Floating Lightning now gets stacks
This is going to
and
sting
can
a
only
little.
bounce to 4 enemies. Same rules apply, your skill effect range times 0.6. So if you can somehow get your skill effect range up to 240%, which is possible with the right reactor, you can have another 4 bounces. So this maxes out at 8 bounces, but realistically you're going to get 2. And then the damage is slightly increased with a power of 255. A note on this ability: whenever there is only 1 enemy, and it does not say this, I don't know why, the balls bounce
There's no
to
getting
and
away.
from Ines to the enemy and back and forth. This is with and without this module. For a bossing Ines, it doesn't really matter that much if you use Time of the Hunting Hounds or no module, because the Floating Lightning still bounces back and forth regardless. Now, that's not saying you can't boss with Ines. You can. The only problem with bossing with Ines is that it's incredibly boring.
Keep trying.
You'll see a reciprocal bounce, and the farther you are,
Begin
the
tracking.
less your DPS is.
This is going to sting a little. There's no getting away.
This is on the module Time of the Hunting Hounds, with 1 range module,
This is going
2,
to sting a little.
3, 4, 5. You get 5 bounces. 1 extra bounce because it's divided by 6, not divided by 4. So you're only getting 1 extra bounce. You would have to give yourself an extra 40% to give yourself the extra bounce. We have the Frugal Mindset.
Keep
2,
trying.
3, 4, 5. You don't get it. But if I use an amplification control instead,
You can't escape.
3, 4, 5, 6. That is how that works. Now I could take off the skill expansion and replace it with the amplification control because it would give me the extra bounce and 30 more shield. However, I do just prefer the extra range on the third ability because I do not intend to boss with Ines outside of a niche scenario. In that niche scenario is going to be anything that's exceptionally weak to electric or something like the Defiler. The Defiler is very weak to electric. This is a very big understatement. the scaling on Defiler is absolutely gigantic, simply because he is extremely resistant to toxic, but still weak to electric. You can defeat the Defiler just fine with Ines. It's one of the niche scenarios where she is a good bosser. If I go into the Defiler,
Damn it. So annoying.
you can see she does a fair amount of damage. And then the third ability, Snare Acrobatics. This is a leap ability. You can go in the air or on the ground, and you can see the reticle go back and forth however you want to target with it. The Snare Acrobatics is very similar in the way that it can just target something. So the pierce range on this one is 12 meters at base with the possibility to go to 24, and then at the end it explodes. The burst damage does significantly more damage than the pierce, also has significantly less range. So you can only have a maximum of 10 meters, which is essentially this little white square that I'm in right now. So aim your shots well, but you will get a reticle on the board, but it's still hard to aim. It's even worse on controller. It's not that bad on a mouse. But if you build into a cooldown, this is quite effective. Now onto the build. So my build has nimble fingers. I recommend every build have nimble fingers because cooldown is very important with a lot of skill spamming characters. Since MP conversion comes with a downside, I've elected to go with time distribution, which will give you a little bit more hit points anyway. Of course, an increased HP module. Then I have emergency measures, front lines, and skill concentration. I don't need any more than that. And if I go to my skill critical hit rate, I will see an 83%, but that is because I am level 16. At level 40, this will take me to 99%, and I'm still missing 3% for my reactor due to me missing the better reactor farms. I'll go into the reactor later. Focus on electric for both the cooldown and the electric power. You can do electric specialist or electric master, but the skill cooldown you will really want because it's hard to get cooldown on Ines Raya. Usually you have MP conversion, but since MP is important, you don't want to sacrifice your critical hit rate. Focus on tech, same reason. And then we have one skill expansion module. The expansion module is both for range and to get more bounces, but mostly it's for range. If you just want straight up more damage, you can sub out the skill expansion module for more damage in the form of a spear and shield, which would probably be the best form because you get defense as well, or as an electric Syncytium module. And then I personally have HP amplification on. I think 2 HP modules are better for Ines, mostly because I'm running the Slayer set, so I want to stay alive. I only have 10,000 hit points at level 16, but you get a lot more when you're level 40. You can run the Slayer components, because I'm going to, and you should honestly run whatever you want. However, on the power unit and the sensory unit, it would behoove you to run a maximum MP and a maximum HP. They don't have to be gold stats, but purple at least. The blue ones are actually bad. For the weapon, I highly recommend the Secret Garden, because even if you aren't running Time of the Hunting Hounds and you're running the Plasma Ball, you are still wanting Snare Hunter and Lightning Conductor to do their maximum damage, and they are both tech, and honestly, you should be just casting all of her abilities whenever you could cast them anyway. So Secret Garden is the best weapon for her. As far as reactors go, you will need a skill critical hit rate on your reactor unless you want to sacrifice a module slot or skill insight to get the maximum skill critical hit rate. As far as the damaging stats go, skill critical hit damage will give you the most damage out of all of them, but tech, skill power boost ratio, critical hit damage, and electric power boost ratio are all fine. Honestly, skill critical hit rate and one of those three will be a fine reactor. There is something important to note about Plasma Ball. Plasma Ball gets rid of the skill critical hit rate increase from the passive ability. So if you're going to run Plasma Ball and you want skill critical hit damage, you're going to want to run all 4 modules anyway, and you'd still want critical hit rate on your reactor regardless. So we'll go into the new Void Erosion Purge, just to showcase Ines Raya. Now, because you do more damage to enemies that are conductive, it doesn't really matter in the order that you use her abilities.
No. Keep trying.
You'll notice it's a slight grind to gain plasma, which you need. But as soon as you start stacking up some resources,
There's no... My shield. You can't escape.
you can do a fair amount of damage.
Those bastards.
And then the lightning stare itself does a fair bit of damage as well, and has a very good range. If you don't charge up the 3rd attack, you lose a lot of damage doing so. And the 4th ability can be deployed in the sky. I don't know why you would do this, but it can be. You can use the 3rd ability as a means of transportation to just get out of a large group of enemies.
Damn them. Let's end this.
But you also have a grappling hook.
This is
I think Ines Raya is really fun, and she is really strong. She has her place in the game, most definitely. But you'll find yourself struggling against one enemy because it becomes quite difficult to gain the plasma. A lot of people are going to want to run a module called Potent Collector, but Potent Collector in this instance would be pretty good just because every time you kill an enemy, you get a 17% chance to get 12% of your resource backs, which would take 5 skill critical hits and some really good RNG to acquire that much plasma. However, I would have to either sacrifice cooldown or hit points for that, and I don't want to do that. I could see myself sacrificing skill expansion, but if I'm going to sacrifice skill expansion for all in all more damage, I would actually put Decimator on instead, because it is quite easy to keep Decimator stacks up. There's no downside to using Decimator. Every enemy that Ines kills is going to have a debuff on it, and it gives you 50% skill power modifier. A 50% skill power modifier on floating lightning will increase this skill's damage by about 20%. It will not, however, increase snare acrobatics that much, so I just don't run it. I'd rather have the range, especially for the 4th ability, Snare Hunter. All in all, I really enjoy Ines Raya, and I'm glad that they've made her kind of different. The only problem I have with Ines Raya, like I said, is it is very hard to acquire custom resources while you're fighting one enemy that you can't really get any procs off because there's not enough enemies around to inflict them with Conductor to acquire enough plasma charge to use either her 4th ability or her 3rd ability, which both require plasma. The way I foresee the First Descendant dev team getting around this is either to make a bossing module for her, which would fix everything, and it would be easy. You could just acquire plasma on critical hits or something of that nature. I will be doing a Secret Garden build later. We kind of have to redo all of the builds with all of the guns in the games due to this man right here. At least Descendant is finally pulling his weight as an NPC. I did this on Twitch. I do a lot of stuff on Twitch. I'm doing a lot of IRL streams, so if you're interested in that or testing on Twitch, check out the description below. Check out my channel if you're interested in the way I do content. Consider subscribing. You'll have a sick day and peace out.